So let's talk CRAFTSMAN Mid Torque Impact Wrenches. The one I have in front of me is the new RP model. It's the CMCF 921, 275 foot-pounds of torque fastening. Now that's going to sound very familiar to the CMCF 920, and in looks and feel and everything it pretty much is, including the same specs. But this one is part of their runtime and performance, so it's supposed to give you a little bit more runtime, although CRAFTSMAN doesn't compare it directly to that model, they compare it down. This is interesting to me because it's not an expensive model. It's right around $120, and this guy over here, while it's probably twice the power, is twice as much money. And then these two over here, which are much smaller, are going to be even more money. So it interests me if this is going to work for the guy at home, because that's what I believe these CRAFTSMAN tools are for the do-it-yourself guy, the shade tree mechanic who wants to get things done. I have the perfect test for this. Let's get after it. I think this is the perfect situation for an average DIY guy. Went out, got new tires about 9 months ago, need to rotate them, and we want to pull them off. Now, Bell Tire put them on, and I'm not calling them out, but most of the guys there are working quite quickly, and they just want to slam and jam these lug nuts on, make sure they hit at minimum their torque value, but they could be anywhere from 140 foot-pounds all the way up to 200, 220, we don't know. That's why this is going to come into play, and it's not going to be a test. It's just going to be, will it remove these lug nuts and at what speed? Every one could be somewhat different, and we can rectify that later. We're going to start out with the 4 amp hour battery on here, see if anything won't come loose, and if we have trouble, we'll up the battery a little bit, and then worst case scenario, we have some backup tools here just to see if those will work. Also, we're going to look at speed here while we're doing this. That wasn't bad at all, considering these were really probably on there well and were rusted around and dry. I think it's great. That was level 2. Now let's just go through and put some of these back on a little bit. And again, you can hear the rust here, I would assume. Ooh. Let's see how this fastens everything up. This says 270 foot-pounds fastening. That seems like a decent number. I would assume if I got a tool that said 275 foot-pounds fastening, I'm going to assume it's going to be in the 330 to 350 range for removing. Let's leave it on, well, let's put it on level 1. Let's just tighten these up. That should be close to 900 RPM. Perfect speed for not screwing anything up. DIY guy just going at it. Let's go to level 2. That seems legit so far. Let's just get out the torque wrench and see about where we're at. So the goal here is to just see approximately where these are at. And I have this set up to beep at 140. So let's just start going slow. And there we started to turn. It should tell us 174. So we definitely were over what we should have been. And I think that's how a lot of people are putting lug nuts on these days. Let's check this one. There we started to move. 160. And we did move that one just slightly, 172. Now obviously we're putting a little bit more on them, but we definitely got to 140 with very little impacting. So I think that this kind of works great for just a simple tire rotation like this, although you shouldn't tighten them as tight as I did. This was just kind of to show you what it will do. So I have this Dewalt torque wrench set up for 200 foot-pounds, which is way more than what should be here. But let's just try it and see what happens. I don't think 200 foot-pounds is going to be too much for this, but I'm doing this because someone online said they had a minivan that they were trying to remove their lug nuts from, and this wouldn't budge any of them. You can take your cars to places and get lug nuts pretty tight, but 200 foot-pounds on a minivan is double what they should be. So let's just see what happens here. It may not do it, it may do it. Let's just give her a go. So there's definitely more hammering involved in that, or more impacting, which doesn't surprise me. Now when we did our testing, on a drill, we found that the 4 and 6 were very similar. Let's just see, since we're all the same here, we'll take off 3 lug nuts and just see if we hear any difference in the speed. This tool I definitely do. There's a definite difference in its impacting hit. Let's just move up to the 9. I think this is a little too large for this tool, but it's here. I don't know that I hear a big difference between the 6 and the 9, but it definitely did seem to pull the lug nuts off a little bit faster. If you're using a 2 amp hour battery on this, you're probably not going to get as much power, and maybe that's where they're at. I wouldn't recommend a 2 amp hour battery on any impact wrench, unless it may be a 1/4 inch drive. All right, so let's just play a quick game with this. 6 amp hour battery, tightening on this guy. That's as far as we're gonna get. Let's switch over to the 2 amp hour battery in reverse, see what happens. Still removed it. We have the Milwaukee Mid Torque, level 3. Let's see if the 2 amp hour will remove it. Slowly, very slowly. And the reason why I was hesitating putting this back on, I was looking at the hog ring on this and trying to get it lined up. Some people complained about that hog ring getting in the way and not allowing them to put their sockets on. Now, if you're not using impact rated sockets, this can be another pain in the butt because that hog ring is not happy with non-impact rated sockets. So let's just try the Metabo HPT. Let's pick a different one. We kind of beat on that one enough. See if we can remove it. And we're going to still with the 2 amp hour battery. So DIY stuff and what you're doing, if someone's just jamming your lug nuts on, I mean, I get it. There might be the case with a Milwaukee or Metabo or Makita. Any Dewalt might not take them off. So you can't really blame the tool. You really have to look at what it's able to do. Pulling off 200 foot-pounds on this was good. DIY stuff, are you going to get into much more like suspension components and different things like that with this guy? I say no. If you're gonna, you better have a big battery and you better be ready to back it up with a breaker bar because it's not going to work on those really large bolts. This is a mid torque. It's going to be great for engine components and obviously lug nuts. So is that precise testing of the CRAFTSMAN? I don't think so. I think that we have a lot of different things here that we can look at, but at the same point, it is real world, and that's what I like. When we compare the Milwaukee to the CRAFTSMAN, they're kind of differently set up, and you can see that the CRAFTSMAN is quite a bit larger, well, maybe ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch there. There's a little bit of difference in weight with the Milwaukee being a bit heavier. But that could be because of the battery to a point. There's not a ton of size difference here. There's going to be a definite power difference. We've seen the Milwaukee really get after it. Put the Metabo in front of this, and the Metabo is a good bit larger. With that said, the CRAFTSMAN is still a touch longer. I don't think that's a huge deal when we look at this stuff. It's just one of those things that, what are you trying to do with your impact? What are you looking to buy this impact to do? And I think it does things quite well. I love that it has a standard switch down here. You just push 1 or 2. You have a slow setting, you have a fast setting. You don't need a ton of settings in between. If it was 3-speed, great, but you can get everything you need to do done with 1 and 2 there, and that works out well. I love that it's not a button, it's gonna work. Variable speed trigger, I will tell you that this variable speed trigger is still one of the best ones that I've seen, and I like the Dewalt one. I'm gonna assume this is the same. Forward, reverse, lockout, it's very, very standard. The hog ring is gonna be a pain in the butt. Use impact rated stuff. It'll be a lot easier to use. You won't have any issues. If you're using silver, non-rated impact stuff, hey, don't complain because it's not designed for that. Basically here, you have a nice impact wrench that is going to be 270 foot-pounds fastening in 300-ish removing. Don't use it for suspension work unless it's light-duty suspension work. I think you'll be happy. So I always struggle when I do a review of a DIY tool. It's not going to be the best performing tool on the market, and it's not going to be the worst, hopefully. At the same point in time, it's not going to be the highest priced, and it probably won't be the lowest price. It's going to be in the middle. So if we look at this, $119 bare tool. This Metabo HPT is going to be around $200 bare tool, and the Milwaukee is going to be up there over top. So we're kind of looking at a large range of tools and comparing them to see what they'll actually do here. And impressive to me was that we could tighten on full with the Milwaukee and remove with the CRAFTSMAN at the 2 amp hour battery. Now, is that a great test? No, because, you know, tightening something up creates heat, puts heat in the nut, puts heat in the bolt, you know, and then you go to remove it, everything's right there. So it's going to be the easiest to remove a nut off something that was just freshly tightened. We all know that. So that's not a great testing standard. And if you're watching someone else just tighten something up and then remove it right away, even after torquing it, that's not real world stuff. That's just kind of a guess as to how it'll go because there's heat in there. That's whatever. We won't go down that road. If you're going to use this, get some better batteries. If you're going to buy it in a kit, make sure that you're going to only use these 2 amp hour batteries for something small, something lightweight, something where you don't need the power all the time, and make sure that you're going to have a 4 or a 6 there to back things up when you're going to do something like rotating tires on a car. I was super impressed that we could just mess with this and go right to about 150 to 160 foot-pounds just by tightening something up. That was just mad impressive. I mean, it was quick, fast, easy, and the grip on this is good and comfortable. Big difference on this grip, it's a little bit fatter. I know that seems weird to say. I don't think it's on the trigger up top. I have larger hands, I fit in here great, but when I feel the Milwaukee, it feels very, very, very similar, except the bottom is a little bit more thin. It's easier to grip. Milwaukee is probably more comfortable to me, but the CRAFTSMAN is a bit more comfortable than the Metabo HPT because the larger hands, and I wish this neck was a little bit longer on the Metabo. At this point, guys, I understand what a lot of people are going to say about the CRAFTSMAN, but for the DIY guy, this is not a bad tool. I stand by that. I think you could get a lot of things done and just use the right battery. Love to hear those comments below. Give us a like in this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.